There is construction going on outside, so if you hear some drilling or other buzzing sounds, know that that is, unfortunately, completely out of my control. Mallard is the fastest steam locomotive in the world. She is also the ultimate expression of the East Coast Mainline express locomotive, with her being the final development of a lineage which all started with this. This is Great Northern Railway number 990, Henry Oakley. Number 990 is the result of the first step away from the Great Northern Railway's locomotive policy as dictated by Patrick Stirling. Patrick Stirling's take on a big express locomotive was, well, how do I put this? Uncomplicated. This is the LNER A2 class, although widely known as the Stirling Singles. Although mighty powerful for their day, they were under-cylindered and very light on their feet. That braw wheel is great for maintaining a good turn of speed, but putting their average of 59 kilonewtons of tractive effort down at rail level was a bit tricky. Stirling's successor, Henry Alfred Ivatt, realised this, and so from 1896 onwards, introduced some smaller passenger types to either replace or supplement the ageing Stirling locomotives, by then the oldest of which was just shy of 30 years old. And although Ivatt introduced locomotives with a similar philosophy as the A2, his classes A3 and A4, Ivatt wanted to produce a locomotive which could both put immense power down at the rails and have the capacity to maintain such tremendous output. In 1898 then, came his Class C1. Number 990 was the first 10-wheeled express locomotive in Great Britain, and thus the publicity machine was a-rollin'. Both the railway and locomotive magazines spoke positively about the locomotive, and soon it was put to work on the Grantham to York portions of Anglo-Scottish expresses. Some have commented on Ivatt's caution with the design. When compared to the A2s, the boilers were nothing special, even considered small. And although number 990 was a success, no doubt about it, it still had a lower tractive effort than the last batch of A2s. As the Pioneer was outshopped in 1898, it retroactively had the nickname Klondike bestowed upon it, in reference to the Canadian gold rush. No word on the names Cadbury, Mars and Hershey's also having been considered. Production Klondikes would enter service in 1900, and they did good work on the many expresses of the Great Northern Railway, despite reports of troubling cylinder capacity. But Ivatt had bigger ideas, and in a shorter time frame as 2 years, was experimenting with 4-cylindered Atlantics. That same year, 1902, a newly built Klondike would prove itself a pioneer. Mechanically, it was the very same as 990 would have been, but atop those frames stood a boiler of unseen proportions. Taking cues from the Great Western Railway's massive broad-gauge locos, the prototype locomotive number 251 solved virtually all problems experienced with the smaller boilered C1s. Production of a proper class of large boilered C1s began in 1904, but again, no less than a year later, Ivatt was producing 4-cylindered compound versions of the big Atlantics. And it was these locomotives which really cemented the GNR's big engine policy as one to stay. Indeed, with their use on a wide variety of expresses, from the crack Flying Scotsman Express to the more mundane Yorkshire fast trains, the policy helped cascade smaller locomotives onto less taxing duties. Ivatt was superseded in 1911 by Nigel Gresley, hitherto the carriage and wagon superintendent. Gresley believed in the big engine policy and, with his attentiveness to the condition of the track, sought to design locomotives which could maintain long and hard running whilst being better balanced. Under Gresley debuted on the Great Northern 8-coupled tender engines, large mixed traffic engines, 3-cylinder locomotives with derived motion, and last but certainly not least, the first true class of 462 express passenger locomotive, and thus the logical evolution of the Atlantic 442. When the Great Northern was amalgamated into the London and North Eastern Railway in 1923, it inherited, by my calculations, 242 Atlantic Express locomotives, 116 of which were Great Northern Railway C1s, both large and small boiled examples. Gresley saw much good in the former and kept them up to date to the end of his tenure as Chief Mechanical Engineer of the LNER, as yet become upon the formation of the company. But his last true express passenger design was to be the triumph of the Great Northern Railway's big engine policy. But there's a story you all know. A story which could not have reached its logical conclusion without the experience gained of Britain's first Atlantic Express engine.